What if everything we've been told about Meghan Markle, Archie Harrison, and the entire fairy tale narrative of the Sussexes was a masterclass in deception? What if, behind the perfectly curated Instagram photos, the tearful interviews, the royal drama headlines, there lies a secret so shocking, so fundamentally unforgivable, that even Buckingham Palace doesn't know how to handle it? Now imagine this. A child, born into royalty, but living in secret, and not just in secret. In a completely different country, raised by a woman who might not be Meghan Markle at all. Sounds like a twisted royal soap opera, right? But according to Lady Colin Campbell, this isn't fiction. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. This is real, and she has the receipts. It all began with a whisper, a name mentioned in passing, a photograph that didn't match the official narrative. A call from a source who refused to be identified, but swore on everything that Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor does not live where the world believes he does, and that Meghan Markle is not who we think she is, not just in personality, but in her biological role as a mother. For years, there have been rumors, allegations, Reddit threads, TikTok breakdowns, body language analyses, endless speculation about Meghan's moon bump, the lack of postpartum appearance, the barely seen royal child. We've heard the theories, but now, for the first time, a respected royal insider has come forward with undeniable, document-backed, voice-recorded evidence to reveal a truth the Sussexes have spent millions hiding. That Archie might be living in the English countryside, not California, not Montecito, and not with Meghan. You may be wondering, why now? Why is this story exploding now? When the world seems to have finally quieted down after Spare, after the Netflix docuseries, after the Spotify drama, after all the royal exits and exiles? The answer is simple. Because silence breeds complacency, and Meghan and Harry were counting on the world to move on. But Lady Colin Campbell? She never moved on. While the media pivoted to King Charles's coronation, while the headlines fixated on Kate and William's polished perfection, Lady C kept digging. She chased whispers in the shadows. She reviewed travel records, cross-checked timestamps, interviewed staffers who had signed ironclad NDAs, and cracked. And what she uncovered is nothing short of explosive. Not only does it call into question where Archie is, it calls into question who gave birth to him, and why the truth had to be buried so deeply. Let's take a step back for a moment. In May of 2019, Meghan and Harry welcomed their first child, Archie Harrison. Or did they? That birth announcement was unlike any other royal baby news in history. No iconic steps of the Lindo wing. No press present. No clear photos. Just a vague statement from Buckingham Palace and a staged photo op days later. The public found it odd, but chalked it up to modern parenting, or privacy concerns, or wanting to do things differently. But some didn't buy it. They noticed inconsistencies. In Meghan's belly, in the timeline, in her walk, her body language. Even the way she cradled her baby bump. Is it paranoia? Or were those signs of something more, fabricated? Now imagine this. What if that entire charade was covering up a secret surrogacy arrangement? And what if the woman who actually gave birth to Archie never left the UK? What if she's been raising him in quiet seclusion, under the radar, protected by non-disclosure agreements, hush money, and legal loopholes? And what if Meghan's mama image was crafted not by maternal instinct, but by necessity, to maintain the illusion, to protect titles, to protect her brand, and possibly her visa? Now, you might be asking, wouldn't the royal family have to know if Meghan used a surrogate? Wouldn't Harry? Wouldn't the public? Here's where it gets messy. Because according to Lady Colin Campbell, the royal family did know, and they were not happy. But rather than risk an international scandal, a public war of ethics and legality, they chose to remain quiet. Why? Because Meghan threatened to go nuclear. She held emotional leverage. She claimed racism, emotional abuse, even suicidal ideation. And she had Oprah, Netflix, Spotify, a media machine hungry for villain-victim storylines. If the palace pushed back, they'd look cruel, archaic, and oppressive. If they stayed silent, maybe it would all go away. But it didn't go away. Because there's one person who doesn't bow to Meghan's media fortress. Lady Colin Campbell. And here's where it gets even darker. Lady C claims she received a voicemail a panicked, rambling confession from a woman who referred to herself as the real mother of Archie. Not a nanny, not a surrogate, but the mother. She didn't give a name. She didn't say where she was calling from. But she said enough to rattle even Lady C, who's heard it all. "I can't keep this up anymore," the woman says. "I love him, but I can't keep pretending." Pretending what? That she's the nanny? That she's not his birth mother? That Meghan Markle is? The audio was time-stamped, dated, and preserved. Lady C had it analyzed. And once the voice was matched to a woman previously spotted holding Archie in an unguarded paparazzi photo taken in the Cotswolds, things escalated. Fast. At this point, you may be wondering, if this is all true, why hasn't it been exposed already? Why haven't tabloids splashed this on front pages? Why isn't it headline news? Simple. Because when the stakes are this high, money, image, power, truth gets buried under lawsuits, payouts, and fear. But not anymore. Because Lady Colin Campbell has gone public. She's releasing the timeline. She's naming names. And she's not alone. Staffers, drivers, private security, even a former palace official. They've all spoken to her. And they've all confirmed Archie's story is not what we were told. Now, if you're still skeptical, good. You should be. This is too explosive to take at face value. That's why, in the next chapters, we'll walk you through every step of the cover-up. From the moment of Archie's alleged birth, to the woman in the shadows holding him in secret, to the damning documents, the media manipulation, the royal silences, the untraceable flights, the legal redactions, and the emotional breakdowns behind closed doors. We'll lay it out piece by piece. And by the end of this exposé, you won't just suspect something's wrong. You'll know it. Because when the truth finally breaks through the lies, it doesn't whisper, it roars. And just when you think you've heard it all, just when the pieces are beginning to click, just when Lady C's web of evidence seems complete, something happens. A new name appears on the birth certificate, and everything we thought we knew is shattered. A new name appears on the birth certificate. But who's the woman bold enough to pull back the curtain and tell the world? Who dares to stand alone in a storm of royal silence, media blackouts, and billionaire-backed PR machines? Lady Colin Campbell, or as some call her, the royal family's most fearless enemy and most inconvenient truth-teller. But who is she really? And why should we believe her? Let's unravel that. She wasn't born into royalty. She wasn't raised behind the walls of palaces or trained in the art of discretion like the Windsors. She was born Georgia Ariana Giotti into a wealthy aristocratic family in Jamaica, 1949. But from the very beginning, her life would be marked by identity, secrecy, and scandal. In fact, even her gender was misassigned at birth. Due to a rare genital defect, Georgia was wrongly labeled a boy. She didn't get access to proper corrective surgery until age 21. Think about that. Imagine the strength it takes to live in the wrong skin for 2 decades. To defy biology, society, and a family that refused to accept her truth. It's no wonder Lady C developed a backbone of steel and a tongue to match. She didn't just survive that experience. She weaponized it. And she carried that same unfiltered fearlessness into the world of British high society. In 1974, she married Lord Colin Ivar Campbell, the younger son of the 11th Duke of Argyll. That's how she got her title, Lady Colin Campbell. But the marriage didn't last. Just 14 months later, the couple separated, and the divorce that followed was as brutal as any royal scandal you've seen. Lord Colin accused her of lying about her past. Lady C accused him of cruelty and manipulation. The tabloids had a field day. But Lady Colin Campbell? She didn't crumble. She reinvented herself, first as a socialite, then as an author, and finally, as one of the most controversial royal commentators the UK has ever seen. Her breakout book was Diana in Private, published in 1992. It caused absolute mayhem. Why? Because she claimed, months before it became public knowledge, that Princess Diana had bulimia, was deeply unhappy in her marriage, and was involved in a serious extramarital affair. At the time, no one believed her. She was mocked, dismissed, painted as a fame-hungry eccentric who made it all up. But a year later, everything she wrote was proven true. And that's when people began paying attention. Lady C wasn't just guessing. She wasn't speculating. She had sources, real ones, deep inside the royal household. But more importantly, She had no leash, no PR contract, no editor censoring her takes, no allegiance to the firm. She was rich, connected, and bold enough to say what no royal reporter dared say. And the palace? They couldn't touch her. Over the next 3 decades, Lady Colin Campbell became a one-woman whistleblower operation. She took on Diana, then Charles, then Camilla. And then, when Meghan Markle entered the scene, Lady C zeroed in. At first, she was intrigued. A mixed-race American actress marrying into the British monarchy? It was history in motion. Lady C called it the potential for a modern fairy tale. But something didn't add up. In Meghan, Lady C saw something familiar, something calculated, rehearsed, manufactured. She saw someone playing a part, not living the role. And when the cracks began to show, the tears on Oprah, the family estrangement, the palace racism claims, the constant lawsuits, the photo ops, the contradictions, Lady C dove in. She began pulling at threads, tracking Meghan's public timeline, rereading her interviews line by line, studying footage, interviewing former royal staff, speaking privately with those silenced by NDAs. And when Archie was born, Lady Colin Campbell's alarm bells went wild. She didn't believe the bump. She didn't believe the blanket-draped photo calls. She didn't believe the cloaked christening, the secrecy, the odd baby carriage walk where Meghan's body language screamed prop. So she did what she always does. She asked questions others were too afraid to ask. And the answers she got were spine-chilling. A senior member of Meghan's security team allegedly confirmed that no hospital birth records matched the timing of Archie's supposed birth. A domestic staffer swore that no baby was ever heard or seen at Frogmore Cottage for the first 3 months. An anonymous royal aide told her point blank, there was a lot of panic around legal guardianship paperwork. Still, Lady C kept quiet, publicly. Why? Because she needed more than whispers. She needed proof. And she was patient. She began getting visits, phone calls, anonymous packages, photos, documents, flight logs, screenshots, emails, voicemails, and one voice message in particular would change everything. But we'll get to that. For now, it's important you understand. Lady Colin Campbell is not just another royal gossip. She's not a YouTube commentator in her pajamas with a conspiracy channel. She's a seasoned insider with deep connections, vast wealth, and nothing to lose. She's dined with dukes, fought court battles with princes, and stood her ground when even the BBC tried to silence her. And when Meghan Markle allegedly threatened to sue her over a past book, what did Lady C do? She laughed, and then doubled down. Her stance on Meghan is clear, and has been from the start. In Lady C's own words, Meghan Markle is the most manipulative woman to enter royal life in modern history, and the most dangerous. She says Meghan doesn't just seek privacy. She seeks control, narrative domination, emotional manipulation, and when the truth doesn't align with her branding, she buries it. With NDAs, with strategic tears, with bullying accusations, with racism claims, with lawsuits. But there's one thing Meghan can't control. Lady Colin Campbell. Because Lady C doesn't care about backlash. She doesn't need approval. She doesn't crave the palace's favor or Hollywood spotlight. She cares about truth. Raw, ugly, exposed. And according to her, the ugliest truth is this. Archie Harrison is not being raised by Meghan Markle. And never was. Now let's be clear. This isn't just some clickbait accusation. Lady C claims to have documents. She's spoken to sources who were in the room when child custody decisions were negotiated behind closed doors. She knows where the surrogate stayed. She's seen bank transfers to a woman living quietly in the UK countryside. She's reviewed photographs that never made it to the public. She has metadata, timestamps, and even one deleted voice memo that was recovered and digitally authenticated. She's not guessing. She's building a case. And guess what? That case is ready. You might be asking, why hasn't Meghan sued her? Why hasn't Harry issued a denial? Why hasn't Buckingham Palace said anything? Because once Lady C reveals what she knows, once the evidence is in the public domain, the game changes. And silence? That's not denial. It's fear. Fear of confirmation. Fear of exposure. Fear of what comes next. So the question now isn't, can we trust Lady Colin Campbell? The question is, what did she uncover? And why has Meghan fought so hard to suppress it? Because what's about to be revealed doesn't just threaten Meghan's credibility. It doesn't just raise questions about Archie's upbringing. It could shake the foundations of royal lineage, succession rights, and the very narrative the Sussexes have profited from for years. And when Lady C pulls the curtain back, what we see may just change everything we thought we knew. But what she discovered next wasn't just scandalous. It was a missing piece the palace hoped no one would ever find. Where's Archie? That's the question that's haunted royal watchers, skeptics, and even casual observers since 2019. Not how is Archie? Not what's he like? Not even how's life as a royal toddler? But where? Because for a child born into one of the most photographed, most dissected, and most obsessively followed families in the world, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor has essentially disappeared. But why? What is Meghan Markle hiding? And why has no one, not the palace, not the press, not even Harry himself, answered the simplest question of all? Where is Archie? Let's rewind. On May 6, 2019, Buckingham Palace announced that Meghan Markle had given birth to a healthy baby boy in the early morning hours. That sentence was all we got. No hospital name, no delivery doctor's statement, no photographs outside the Lindo wing, as is royal tradition. No press standing eagerly outside a hospital. Instead, just a vague statement. A staged photo op 2 days later, inside Windsor Castle, far from prying eyes. Harry beaming, Meghan looking fresh-faced and rested. A swaddled baby in a white blanket, asleep, or so we were told. But here's what set off the alarm bells for Lady Colin Campbell and many others. That baby never opened his eyes, never cried, was covered almost entirely by a beanie and a blanket. And Meghan looked nothing like a woman who'd just given birth 2 days prior. No swelling, no postpartum fatigue, no telltale physical signs, just glowing skin, perfect posture, and a smile that felt more rehearsed than maternal. Still, the public was willing to suspend disbelief. Maybe they just wanted privacy. Maybe Meghan had a tough delivery. Maybe they're doing things their own way. Fair enough. But then months passed, and Archie vanished. No new baby photos. No casual shots from the garden. No nanny glimpses. No leaked candid moments from staffers. Nothing. In fact, the only time we ever saw Archie again was in a handful of holiday cards, digital ones. And even those raised more questions than they answered. One of the earliest red flags came during Meghan's 2019 appearance on The Ellen DeGeneres Show. She showed a picture of Archie, now a toddler, feeding chickens in their Montecito backyard. The image? So blurry it was practically unusable. The camera angle avoided a clear view of his face. The child's height, posture, and features sparked immediate debate online. Is that even Archie? Why does he look older than his age? Why is Meghan never seen in public with him? And then came the comparisons. Archie at 2 versus Prince George at 2. The difference? George had dozens of public appearances, school photos, family outings, press-approved portraits. He existed in the public eye. Archie remained a ghost. Lady Colin Campbell wasn't the only one raising eyebrows. In royal media circles, murmurs began circulating. Where's Archie really living? Why don't we have any actual photos? Why do the Sussexes always publish digital artwork or blurry videos instead of real images? Then came the Time 100 video. Shot in their Montecito mansion, it featured Meghan and Harry discussing voter turnout in the U.S. election. A framed photo of Archie sat on the shelf behind them. Zoom in, and you'll find what skeptics call the uncanny valley. Facial features that don't match previous images. Odd lighting. A strange blur around the outline of the boy. Many digital analysts claimed it looked edited, perhaps even AI-generated. Lady C noted this too, and took action. She forwarded the image to a forensic image expert. The result? The photograph may have been digitally altered or composed from multiple sources, the report concluded. Not proof, but suspicion. And when it comes to the royal family, suspicion is fuel. Meanwhile, Meghan's PR machine kept pushing a new narrative. Protect Archie's privacy. Keep him safe from the British tabloids. He's not a working royal. He deserves anonymity. But Lady Colin Campbell wasn't buying it. Why? Because the very same Meghan who begged for privacy also did a multi-million-dollar Netflix documentary featuring dramatic reenactments of her life. Signed a memoir deal. Appeared on Oprah. Launched podcasts. Sold their story to every major outlet. Privacy? That wasn't the issue. Control was. And that meant controlling Archie's image, his location, and the public's access to the truth. Then came the next shocking twist. A blurry, long-lens photo surfaced online. A woman in the English countryside, wearing casual clothes, pushing a stroller near a secluded Cotswolds estate. The baby in the stroller was unmistakably Archie. The same light hair, same facial shape, same ears. Only this child looked slightly older than expected. Too old to be Archie. If you trusted Meghan's timeline. But if the timeline was fabricated, suddenly, it made sense. Lady Colin Campbell took one look at the image and gasped. Not because of the child, but because of the woman pushing the stroller. She wasn't a nanny, not a member of the royal staff, not anyone the public had seen before. But Lady C recognized her immediately, because she had appeared once before, in the background of a pap photo, years ago, at an estate linked to Harry's old social circle. Lady C's curiosity exploded. Who was this woman? She ran facial recognition checks. No matches. She contacted a trusted ex-security officer, one who had worked part-time on Meghan and Harry's protection detail during their time in the UK. He confirmed the woman's identity. I can't give you her name, he said. But I can tell you this, she's not staff. She's something else. What does that mean? That she's a friend? A cousin? A surrogate? No. The answer, whispered in a late-night call, chilled Lady C to her core. She's been raising him since day one. This wasn't just a one-off sighting. Lady C soon obtained 2 more photos, both grainy, both captured months apart. Each time, the same woman, same child, same location. Archie was living in the UK, not California, and Meghan was only claiming to raise him. Why? Because the truth, that Archie had been in the care of someone else all along, would destroy everything. The royal narrative, the Oprah story, the Mommy Meghan brand, the Sussex family image, not to mention legal implications. Was Archie ever legally under Meghan's custody? Was she ever listed as his biological mother on birth certificates? Did Harry know? Was he complicit? Or deceived? Then came a voice recording, a frantic message, a woman crying, her voice breaking. I can't do this anymore, she said. I've done everything they asked, but I can't keep pretending. He calls me mommy. Lady C played it over and over, and when she matched the voice to the woman in the stroller photos, she knew this wasn't a theory anymore. This wasn't gossip. This was a coordinated cover-up. And Archie Harrison, he had vanished from public life because the people who claimed to raise him never did. So let's ask the question again. Where's Archie? Because from everything Lady C has uncovered, he's in the UK, living in quiet seclusion, raised by a woman the world has never met. Not because of safety, not because of privacy, but because the truth would unravel everything. And just when Lady C thought she had all the answers, she received a package. No return address, no name, just a USB drive. And what was on it would leave her speechless. Who was she? The woman pushing the stroller. The one caught in a quiet village in the English countryside, far from the cameras, far from Montecito. She wasn't wearing designer sunglasses. She wasn't flanked by security. There was no entourage, no PR glare, just one woman and one child. The child we were all told was living oceans away. Archie Harrison, Mountbatten, Windsor. So who was she? Was she a nanny? A relative? A staffer? No. Lady Colin Campbell had a gut instinct. And that instinct told her something far more explosive. This was Archie's biological mother. Let's start with the photograph. Grainy, cropped, but revealing. Taken by a freelance photographer working a wedding nearby. They weren't even looking for scandal, just countryside ambience. But when he zoomed in to check the focus on a passing figure pushing a stroller, something caught his eye. It wasn't just the child. It was the resemblance. The ears, the cheeks, the light auburn hair curling above the neckline. The same baby blue sweater seen in one of Meghan's staged Christmas cards. He knew who the child was. And instinctively, he took a second photo. That second image revealed the woman's profile. And within 24 hours, that image was forwarded, through an encrypted link, to Lady Colin Campbell's confidential tip line. When Lady C first opened the file, she didn't react. Not with a gasp, not with a scream, just a long, breath-held silence. Because she'd seen that face before. A few years earlier, she'd been researching surrogacy clinics in the UK and California, looking for connections, patterns. medical professionals who might have been linked to private arrangements by high-profile clients. And that's where she first saw the woman. She wasn't listed as a surrogate. She wasn't a patient. But her name came up in connection to a private support group, one often used by discreet surrogates who cared for high-net-worth clients. This woman was only mentioned once, in a forum post by another anonymous user. The post? Flagged, deleted, archived, but Lady C had captured it. The next move was clear. Find out who she was. Lady C contacted her digital forensic team, the same one that analyzed inconsistencies in Meghan's Netflix footage. They ran the photograph through facial recognition software, tied the image to a social media account that had gone dark since 2019. No new posts, no tag locations, just a few scattered photos from before that time, mostly countryside landscapes, quotes about motherhood, and a handful of selfies taken with extreme caution. But then Lady C noticed something eerie. The account had scrubbed all photos from March to July 2019. All captions referencing motherhood had been deleted. And one image, a selfie showing her in a hospital gown, belly slightly swollen, with the caption counting down the days, was marked private. Too late. The metadata was still accessible. That image had been taken on May 2, 2019. For days before Archie was reportedly born. Could this be the woman? A birth mother? Or a surrogate? Why the secrecy? Why scrub the photos? And why, years later, was she spotted, still with the child? That was the question that chilled Lady C to her core. Because surrogates, even in the most unconventional arrangements, don't raise the children they birth. They don't stroll them through the Cotswolds. They don't appear on voicemails saying, "He calls me mommy." Something was very, very wrong. Lady C took things further. She contacted a source inside UK immigration. Someone who owed her a favor. She wanted flight records. Specifically, entries and exits for Meghan Markle and Archie between May and October 2019. The results? Inconclusive. But one thing stood out. There was no record of an infant under Archie's full name entering the UK during 2 of Meghan's known visits. How was that possible? Had they traveled under pseudonyms? Had Archie not flown at all? Or was he already there? To answer that, Lady C needed confirmation from someone who knew the woman in the photograph. She tracked down an ex-driver who had worked for a private estate in the Cotswolds, an estate once used for discreet royal getaways. He was hesitant, but when she showed him the photo, his face changed. "I know her," he said. "I used to drive her to private checkups during a pregnancy." Lady C pressed him. Was this before or after Meghan gave birth? He hesitated, then said, with certainty, before. She was already heavily pregnant when Meghan was appearing in public with a flawless belly and zero physical signs of carrying a child. The timeline didn't match, and it never had. Then came the smoking gun. A source within a private clinic in Gloucestershire sent Lady C a cryptic message. "You're not wrong. I saw the file. She gave birth on the 6th, but the surname on the birth certificate isn't hers. They paid her off. That child wasn't meant to stay with her." The plan was simple. Surrogacy, payment, clean break. Except something changed. According to this insider, the woman couldn't let go. She bonded. She hesitated. And when Meghan delayed collecting the baby, yes, delayed, the arrangement started to unravel. Suddenly, legal guardianship papers were drafted. Private negotiations occurred. A lawyer flew in from the US. And then silence. No press. No updates. Just a disappearing act. And Archie was never taken to Montecito. But what could cause such a break from the plan? Was Meghan emotionally unprepared? Were there legal hurdles? Did the palace intervene? Or was Meghan never meant to raise the child at all? A surrogate turned full-time mother? Or worse, a decoy for a bigger plan? Lady C reached out to the woman directly. A letter. No accusations. No threats. Just a request. "I believe your story matters, and the world deserves to hear it." No reply. For weeks. Until one evening, Lady C's phone rang. An unknown number. A nervous voice. "I can't talk long," the woman whispered. "I didn't want any of this." Lady C asked, "Are you Archie's mother?" The woman paused, then said, barely audible, "Yes, I gave birth to him, and I've raised him ever since." That moment was seismic. Everything Lady C suspected, confirmed in 6 words. The woman in the photograph wasn't a staffer, not a friend, not a surrogate in the traditional sense. She was his mother. And yet, so many questions remained. How had she stayed hidden? How had Meghan avoided public scrutiny for so long? What role did Harry play? And if Archie was being raised in the UK, what happened during the Oprah interview? The Netflix documentary? The family portraits? Were they all staged? Constructed to sell a fairy tale that had crumbled from the very beginning? Lady C promised the woman she wouldn't release her name. Not yet, but she pressed for one more thing. Proof. Birth records. Hospital files. Something that could be traced. And the woman said something chilling. They made me sign things, but I kept copies. And if anything happens to me, they're going public. She was scared, not of Lady C, but of who might be watching. Because the truth, if exposed, would destroy the entire house of cards Meghan Markle had built. Lady C ended the call with one final question. Does Archie know you're his mother? The woman replied. He always has. I'm the only mother he's ever known. And just as Lady C hung up, her encrypted server pinged. The woman had sent her something. A document. One that bore Meghan Markle's name. But not in the way anyone expected. What if the truth about Archie's birth doesn't just affect Meghan Markle? What if it threatens the very foundation of royal tradition? Because in the British monarchy, bloodline is everything. And Lady Colin Campbell now held a document that could shatter it all. It was a scanned copy of a medical file. A discharge note from a private Gloucestershire clinic. Date, May 6, 2019. Time, 5:43 a.m. Name of patient, redacted. But Lady C cross-verified the metadata. The document had been exported from the clinic's internal system 2 hours after the supposed birth of Archie Harrison. And while the mother's name was blacked out, there was one name visible at the bottom. Infant registered, Archie Harrison M. No Mountbatten Windsor. No Sussex. Just a middle initial. Just enough to make your heart stop. Because if Meghan Markle had given birth that day, in that place, her name would be listed. And it wasn't. Now, to understand how serious this is, we need to look beyond the drama and into the law. In the UK, surrogacy is legal, but only under strict conditions. Most importantly, the surrogate is the child's legal mother at birth. That's right. Even if Meghan Markle commissioned the surrogacy, even if the egg was hers, the woman who gave birth holds full parental rights until a court transfers them. That transfer can take months, sometimes over a year, and it must be signed off by a judge. If Meghan and Harry never completed that process, then Meghan is not legally Archie's mother. Not on paper, not in court, not under UK law. But there's more. Lady C had also obtained a witness affidavit from a midwife who allegedly assisted the birth. In it, she states, I was informed the child would be adopted abroad. I was given a name to input into the registry, but it did not match the woman giving birth. I expressed concern, but was told it was standard procedure for international arrangements. What name was entered? She couldn't say. That part had been handled by administration. But the implication was devastating. Meghan Markle was not present. Not during labor. Not during delivery. And the woman who was present was the same woman Lady C had tracked through countryside photos, scrubbed social media, and encrypted voicemails. This wasn't just a surrogacy. This was a cover-up. So how does this affect the royal family? The monarchy is built on lineage. Lineage determines titles. It determines succession. It determines who belongs and who doesn't. Prince George is third in line. Princess Charlotte is fourth. Prince Louis is fifth. Archie, he would be sixth, if he is truly the biological son of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. If there's legal documentation to support it. If he was born within the accepted bounds of royal protocol. But if Archie is the biological child of someone else, or if Meghan never completed parental transfer, or if there was no biological link at all, then what? Is he a royal at all? Is he eligible for succession? Or has the monarchy been duped into placing a child with no legal claim into the line? Let's dig even deeper. Lady C discovered that in late 2020, shortly before Harry and Meghan's Oprah interview, a set of DNA kits was ordered to a Montecito residence. Not for health. Not for ancestry fun, but for legal purposes. The source who leaked this, an ex-courier tasked with confidential deliveries, claimed the kits were dispatched under a legal firm's name. They were sealed with government barcodes. But what made it strange? The return address. It wasn't a lab. It was a royal notary office in the UK. Why would Meghan and Harry be sending DNA samples to a British legal entity? Why then? Why now? And why, according to the Courier, did the female DNA sample come from a location outside of Montecito? A second residence? A guest house? Or someone else entirely? At this point, Lady C knew she needed answers about biology. So she sought out an expert, a senior advisor in hereditary law, formerly affiliated with the Queen's Privy Council. He agreed to speak, off the record, and what he said was chilling. If Meghan did not give birth to Archie, and if she did not legally obtain full guardianship, then by all accounts, Archie is not a legitimate heir to any titles. Not prince, not earl, not even master. The monarchy has very clear, very old laws on this. Titles cannot be gifted retroactively to non-biological children without full disclosure and parliamentary approval. Has that ever happened before? Yes, but only in the case of adoption with full transparency, not deception, not secrecy, and certainly not involving surrogacy hidden from both the public and the crown. This may explain why Archie was never given a title at birth. The palace said it was to allow him to live a private life. But behind the scenes, legal chaos. Lady C's sources claim that senior royals, particularly Prince William and the late Queen, were adamantly opposed to giving Archie a title without documentation. And Meghan? According to one staffer, she was furious, yelled at aides, demanded meetings, threatened to go public. But there was a problem. She couldn't prove maternity, because her name wasn't on the original birth certificate. Then came the California filing, a separate certificate registered months later, this time listing Meghan as the mother. But when Lady C compared it to the UK record, the dates didn't match. The formatting was inconsistent, and the attending doctor listed had never practiced in California. Forgery? Backdating? We can't say for sure. But what we can say is this. Something was changed, and someone wanted Meghan's name on that paper, at all costs. Now, let's step back and ask the big question. Why hide the surrogacy at all? After all, many public figures have used surrogates. Kim Kardashian, Nicole Kidman, Sarah Jessica Parker. Why not just admit it? Because this isn't Hollywood. This is the crown. And in royal tradition, the legitimacy of an heir requires clear biological lineage, recognized marital union, physical birth within known and approved medical institutions. Without that trifecta, everything is questioned. And Meghan? She wanted the benefits of royal motherhood, without the scrutiny. So instead of coming clean, she built a narrative, complete with bump cradling, pose-perfect maternity outfits, photoshopped belly progressions. And when the baby arrived, no hospital, no medical report, no press, no proof, just two smiling parents and a blanket-covered bundle. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Could Meghan have used her own egg? Could the surrogate merely be a vessel? Possibly. But even that requires documentation. And by all accounts, that documentation is sealed, redacted, or never existed. Which means the world doesn't know. Which means the monarchy doesn't know. Which means we've been sold a royal lie. And here's the final twist. In mid-2022, Lady C received another tip. A second child. Another pregnancy. Another birth. Another surrogate. This time, it was Lilibet Diana. And if Meghan used a second surrogate, without disclosure again, we may be looking at a pattern. A web of deception spun not just to gain privacy, but to secure a royal legacy under false pretenses. The implications? Monumental. Because if neither Archie nor Lilibet are biologically tied to Meghan, and if no legal documentation supports guardianship, then the line of succession has been infiltrated. The public has been misled. And the royal family may have allowed it, knowingly or not. And just when Lady Colin Campbell thought she had reached the end of the paper trail, an anonymous email appeared in her inbox. Attached, a voice memo, and in it a name, one no one expected to be involved. They say the internet never forgets. But Meghan Markle and Prince Harry? They certainly tried to make it forget. Emails erased, calls rerouted, cloud drives encrypted, devices scrubbed by cybersecurity firms costing thousands a day. But in the digital age, there's always something left behind. A backup, a screenshot, a misrouted message. And in this case, a trail so damning it could unravel the entire Sussex narrative. Lady Colin Campbell had been following breadcrumbs for years. But when she received that anonymous email, the floodgates burst open. Because what she was handed wasn't just gossip. It wasn't theory. It was the evidence they tried to delete. And failed. Let's start with the email. Subject line. Not everyone followed the script. Attached, a single MP4 file and a zipped folder labeled Flight BB742_HRR. Lady C's heart raced. She opened the video first. A screen-recorded FaceTime call. 3 faces visible, 1 pixelated. The other 2? Clear as daylight. Meghan Markle, and a woman previously identified by Lady C as Archie's biological mother. But this wasn't a friendly chat. It was a negotiation. Meghan's voice was sharp, controlled, rehearsed. You need to stay off social. I've told you that. Anything you post reflects on me. The woman replied, visibly agitated. You said this would be temporary. It's been 3 years. He thinks I'm his real mom, because I am. Meghan, calm but cold, leaned into the camera. You knew the arrangement. You signed the papers. You took the money. Don't make me send my lawyer. The video ended. 9 seconds. But enough to confirm everything Lady C had suspected. This woman wasn't a nanny, wasn't a decoy. She was Archie's actual caregiver. And Meghan was desperate to keep her quiet. But that was just the beginning. Inside the zipped folder, Lady C found a collection of screenshots, internal emails from a travel security company based in Los Angeles. Most messages referenced a recurring flight route. Los Angeles-Birmingham, UK. Private jet, tail number BB742_HRR. Passenger manifest encrypted, but a single name appeared consistently. C. Roberts, child, 3 years old, unaccompanied. The emails were dated from 2020 through 2022. Multiple trips, and each return flight showed no child on the manifest. Lady C's jaw dropped. Archie was being flown back and forth between the UK and US, not with Meghan or Harry, but with private guardians. And C. Roberts? A code name for Archie? Or the legal name of the child? Before the public ever heard the name, Archie Harrison. Either way, this child was being moved in secret. Away from Montecito, away from the cameras, and away from Meghan. Lady C sent the documents to her digital security advisor for metadata tracing. What came back was startling. Some of the emails had been sent from Meghan's own device, an iPhone X registered under an alias linked to her former legal team. They had been deleted, wiped. But remnants were backed up on a shared team account used during Meghan and Harry's Sussex royal transition. One former staffer had quietly archived those backups. Why? Because, as he told Lady C, I had a bad feeling about the whole thing. Meghan insisted on encrypted channels for anything related to the kid. Even when it was just photos. Even when it was just booking a driver. Everything had to be hush-hush. Way beyond what William or Kate ever did. It didn't feel like privacy. It felt like cover-up. Then came the Dropbox link. A second anonymous tip. Inside, a single document labeled, Amended Parental Agreement, May 2019, unofficial. Unofficial? That raised red flags immediately. Lady C opened it and gasped. The document, while not legally binding, was a written acknowledgement between 2 parties. Party A, Meghan Markle. Party B, redacted name, confirmed by handwriting expert as the woman in the Cotswolds photo. It outlined a temporary guardianship arrangement. Terms included non-disclosure of identity, no public statements or media appearances, temporary care of minor child until relocation to California is completed, compensation amount redacted. But the final clause was the most damning. Party A retains the right to terminate this agreement at any time without explanation, provided Party B returns the child to designated personnel within 72 hours. That clause alone implied one thing. Meghan never had full, legal custody. She borrowed the child, expected to collect him later. And when that didn't happen, she scrambled to maintain the illusion of control. Why go to such lengths? Because the image of Mother Meghan was crucial. To the Netflix deal, to the Spotify narrative, to the memoir ghostwriters. It was the only part of the royal brand Meghan had full ownership over. She couldn't claim lineage. She wasn't born into the firm. She didn't carry the Windsor name. But she could claim motherhood. She could wield it, leverage it, monetize it. And if the world ever discovered that Archie wasn't truly hers, biologically or legally, the whole house of cards would fall. Then came the most unexpected detail. Among the metadata files, Lady C found a deleted calendar invite. June 4th, 2021. Subject line, Second Transfer Meeting, LDH Facility. Attendees, Meghan M., Legal Rep, Child Advocate, UK, H. Mountbatten, Windsor. LDH equals Lady Dufferin Hospital, Gloucestershire. The same hospital tied to the first surrogate. The subject line didn't mention Archie. But the timing? June 4th is Lilibet Diana's official birth date. Was this the second child being handed over? Was this another surrogate? And if so, was the same process used? Lady C had stumbled onto something even bigger. A potential pattern. 2 children. 2 surrogate arrangements. Both wrapped in secrecy. Both scrubbed from the digital record. Until now. And then the audio file. Buried at the bottom of the anonymous package. A recorded call. Male voice. British accent. Look, I told her. This can't happen again. The Americans are asking too many questions. The passports don't line up. A pause. She needs to either register the kid properly or risk getting flagged. The name at the end? Dan. Lady C cross-referenced the voice with known royal staff. It was a match. A former assistant to a high-ranking member of the Queen's Legal Advisory Council. And the reference to passport flags. Direct evidence that Archie's legal identity may not match his travel records. Which opens the door to something far more sinister. Immigration fraud. If Meghan entered the U.S. with a child not legally hers. If Harry's visa records list dependents who aren't biologically connected. If passports were amended after the fact. The implications go beyond royal scandal. They enter federal jurisdiction. Lady C knew what she had to do next. She reached out to a senior contact within the Home Office. And the response? A single, cryptic message. We've been watching this for a while. But someone keeps closing the files. Lady C asked who. No reply. But 2 days later, her website was hacked. Her YouTube videos flagged. 3 anonymous death threats sent through encrypted messaging apps. Clearly, she had gotten too close. But there was one thing they didn't count on. Lady Colin Campbell does not back down. She's seen scandal. She's lived through betrayal. She's been sued, mocked, and erased from polite society. And still, she speaks. Because this isn't just about Meghan, or Archie, or titles. It's about truth. And buried deep in the digital rubble of secrecy, NDAs, and encrypted flights, the truth has started to bleed through. But just when Lady C prepared to go public with it all, she got a call. From a blocked number. The voice on the other end? Shaky. Familiar. You need to stop, it whispered. Because if you release what you have, the palace will fall too. It started as a whisper. A call from a blocked number. A trembling voice. A warning that chilled Lady Colin Campbell to the bone. If you release what you have, the palace will fall too. That wasn't the voice of a journalist. It wasn't a troll or a Sussex supporter trying to intimidate her. It was someone who knew the truth, knew the players, knew how high the stakes really went. And what followed that call was even more terrifying. A voicemail, just 27 seconds long. But it would change everything. Lady C didn't recognize the number at first. It was foreign, digitally masked through an encrypted relay. But the voice? Unmistakable. Not Meghan. Not Harry. Not the woman from the countryside. It was someone from inside the palace. A senior aide. Retired. But still in the loop. Still respected. Still trusted by the firm. She spoke fast. Her voice low, almost breaking. You're right. About the boy. About who's raising him. They know. They've always known. Lady C froze. There were talks in 2019 in Balmoral. Meghan was adamant. No disclosure. Harry refused to admit anything on record. But the Queen, she signed something. Something that changed it all. Then, silence. The line went dead. Lady C played the voicemail over and over. The Queen signed something? What document? And why would the palace, known for its obsession with protocol, lineage, and tradition, go along with Meghan's secrecy? The answer was horrifying in its simplicity. Self-preservation. Because if Meghan's deception were exposed, if it turned out that the sixth in line to the throne was not legally or biologically eligible for royal titles, if it turned out the palace knew and chose silence, the monarchy itself would be implicated, not just in scandal, but in complicity. Lady C's investigation deepened. She reached out to her contact at the Home Office again. This time, they were more direct. We can't go on the record, they said. But there was a meeting in July 2019. 3 people present. One was from Clarence House. one from the Cabinet Office, one from MI5. MI5. Why would Britain's domestic intelligence agency be involved in a child custody dispute? Because this wasn't just about a child. It was about optics, power, international diplomacy, a royal born in secrecy, the contact said, unverified maternity, international legal ambiguity. That's a national security risk. Because if Meghan lied, if the documents were forged, if Archie didn't have the legal status he claimed, it could be weaponized by tabloids, by foreign press, by enemies of the crown. And so, the palace made a choice, not to expose, but to contain. And the Queen? She made one final gesture, a compromise, a sealed guardianship amendment, filed quietly, never published, not to legitimize the child, but to shield the monarchy from the storm that would come if the truth got out. Lady C had suspected the Queen had intervened, but this confirmed it. Her Majesty, beloved across generations, had signed something that directly touched the life of a child she may never have met in person. There were whispers within the palace halls that the Queen only saw Archie once after his birth, and even then, for mere minutes. Not because she didn't care, but because, as one source put it, there was unease, legal ambiguity, too many questions unanswered. Her Majesty didn't want to be caught on record endorsing anything she wasn't certain of. Then Lady C made a chilling discovery. There had been another voicemail, not to her, to a third party, a solicitor once retained by Meghan Markle. The voicemail had been deleted, wiped from servers. But, thanks to an old court case involving unrelated litigation, the law firm's call logs were subpoenaed. Backups were reviewed, and that voicemail was preserved in an archived server no one remembered existed. Lady C's legal informant forwarded a transcript. Meghan's voice, raw, unfiltered, angry. She's threatening to go public. She says she'll talk to the press. If she does, we're all screwed. I need you to draft something. Gag her. Threaten custody changes if she speaks. She was referring, almost certainly, to the woman in the Cotswolds. The one raising Archie. The one Meghan had tried to keep invisible. The one Archie called Mommy. But the transcript didn't end there. The solicitor, nervous, asked a follow-up question. Do you have full parental rights under UK law? Meghan's reply? A pause. Then, I have what I need. That's all that matters. No, she didn't say yes. She didn't affirm legality. She didn't confirm custody. She deflected. And in that moment, her entire castle of lies wobbled. Because for all the PR spin, the royal theatrics, the Netflix documentaries, the Oprah tears, Meghan never sealed the legal chain. She had optics. She had narrative. But not truth. Lady C now held a confession from a palisade, a recorded threat from Meghan herself, travel manifests showing unaccompanied child flights, scrubbed emails confirming surrogate arrangements, a hospital discharge note lacking Meghan's name, and now, a voicemail admitting the palace had known all along. This wasn't just a leak. It was a dam break. Still, Lady C had one last question. Why would Harry go along with this? Why would a prince, born into protocol, obsessed with legacy, co-sign this deception? Was he manipulated? Drugged by Meghan's charisma? Blinded by revenge? Or was he complicit? Lady C found her answer in a source close to Harry's former military circle. He described a man spiraling. Post-Afghanistan trauma. Tensions with Charles. Isolation after Diana's death never fully resolved. Meghan came in and offered him something the palace never did, the source said. Unquestioning loyalty. Even if it was fake. Harry clung to her. Even when the truth started bleeding out. Even when the cracks showed. Even when Archie didn't feel like his son. Yes, you heard that right. One witness, an ex-household staffer, said Harry once broke down behind closed doors. He said, "Sometimes I look at him and wonder if he's mine. Wonder if any of this is real." That quote stayed with Lady C, because it revealed the core wound behind this entire deception. Harry may have doubts. He may suspect. He may even know the truth. But he can't afford to admit it. Not publicly. Not privately. Because the cost would be too high. For Meghan. For the child. For the monarchy. And most of all, for himself. Now ask yourself, what happens when a lie becomes your entire identity? When every interview, every book, every speech, every podcast is built on a fiction? You protect it. At all costs. You silence whistleblowers. You threaten birth mothers. You edit timelines. You erase digital trails. You gaslight the world. Until someone, like Lady Colin Campbell, refuses to look away. And in that refusal, the whole thing begins to unravel. But just as Lady C prepared to present her findings to the press, she received a final message. A letter. No return address. No signature. Inside, a birth certificate. And it didn't say, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. It said something else. Something shocking. The name on the birth certificate wasn't Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. It wasn't even Archie. It was Charles Robert W. A name that meant nothing to the public. But to Lady Colin Campbell, it blew the lid off the entire royal mystery. Because Charles Robert wasn't just a random placeholder. It was a name coded to disguise identity. And the W? A surname linked to a property in the Cotswolds. Yes. The same Cotswolds estate where Lady C's secret source had been spotted. Where the stroller photo was taken. Where Archie, or should we now say, Charles Robert, had been living all along. Let's rewind. Since 2019, the Sussexes claimed they relocated to North America for peace and privacy. Meghan painted California as a sanctuary for Archie, sun-drenched and far from royal intrusion. But if the birth certificate Lady C now held was real, if Charles Robert W. was actually Archie under a different name, then the world had been duped. Because instead of Montecito, this child had been raised in the English countryside, on land owned by a trust connected to a former royal associate who quietly purchased a 400-acre Cotswolds estate months before Archie's birth. Coincidence? Or conspiracy? Lady C was determined to find out. Let's talk about the flights. Earlier, Lady C had uncovered private aviation logs tied to a jet. Tail number BB 742_HRR. Multiple flights. From LA to Birmingham. From Santa Barbara to Farnborough. And on those manifests, a child listed under aliases like C. Roberts, Master Charles W. And once, simply minor passenger. No mention of Meghan. No sign of Harry. In some instances, the only accompanying adult was a woman, identified in records as C. Westlake. Westlake, the same surname initial on the birth certificate. Lady C's blood ran cold. Digging deeper, she traced the tail number BB 742_HRR back to a shell company, Regal Sky Holdings. On paper, a private aviation firm. In reality, a front. Its registered address was tied to the office of one of Meghan and Harry's earliest legal representatives in the UK. The company had been set up in April 2019, 1 month before Archie's birth, with no other recorded clients, except 2 unexplained domestic flights for diplomatic guests. Why would a couple supposedly relocating to Canada need a private jet with diplomatic clearance based in the UK? Why use a shell company? Why list a child under fake names? The answer was as ugly as it was simple. To move the child in secret. Here's where things go nuclear. Lady C received a testimony from a whistleblower, an aviation logistics coordinator. He'd handled the BB 742_HRR manifests personally. He knew the passengers, and he remembered one very specific flight in late 2020. On that flight, he said, a woman boarded at a private hangar in Farnborough. She carried a child, blonde, pale, about 18 months old. The manifest listed the child as Charles R. W. Destination, Santa Barbara, California. Return flight? Child didn't come back. 2 months later, a stage video emerged on Meghan's birthday, showing her reading to Archie. The child? Blonde, pale, chubby-cheeked, and yet different. His face was slightly obscured. His reactions awkward. He didn't look comfortable, either on camera or in Meghan's arms. That video became a PR blitz. But for Lady C, it raised more questions than it answered. Because if Archie had been living in the UK, then who, or what, was that video showing? Let's return to the Cotswolds. The estate Lady C had identified wasn't random. It was purchased in February 2019, using funds routed through a real estate trust registered in Guernsey. And guess who the trustee was? Marcus Anderson. Yes, that Marcus. Meghan's longtime Soho House confidant. The man credited with orchestrating many of her earliest connections to the elite. And now, seemingly, He was involved in real estate that housed a child the world was told lived in America. Why would Meghan's closest fixer purchase an estate months before Archie's birth? And why was that estate quietly renovated to include a soundproof nursery, surveillance jammers, underground tunnels connecting the main house to a guest lodge? You can't make this up. This wasn't a nanny's cottage. This was a fortress, built not to protect, but to hide. But the most damning piece came from local residents. Lady C interviewed 4 separate neighbors who lived within a mile of the Cotswolds property. All 4 reported seeing a blonde toddler, a woman resembling the photo Lady C had matched to the supposed birth mother, and, on rare occasions, a royal security team parked discreetly in a nondescript black SUV. One neighbor said, "He always called her Mom. Not Nanny. Mom. And I never once saw Meghan around here. Not once." Another added, "He played in the fields with other kids. I heard the name Charlie once. Thought nothing of it."